Hello and welcome to Carved in Stone, where I pick a topic and I give you my Mount Rushmore of that topic. So basically my top 4, but I will mention more than 4 selections. Lists, of course, are subjective, and 4 is narrowing it down quite a bit, so I'll explain why some may fall just short of the mountain. I'm your host, Shawn Chabam, and as you may have assumed from the decor behind me, today we are going to focus on something Philadelphia Flyers specific. Usually I'm sitting in the corner of my room where you can see both Eagles and Phillies gear and decor. Today I'm sitting in the Flyers section, and that is because today we are going to be doing my Mount Rushmore of Philadelphia Flyers goons. This podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Philadelphia Flyers, the NHL, or any of their properties. All player images used in this episode are sourced from Wikimedia Commons and are believed to be in the public domain or available under a Creative Commons license. So, I warned you that there would be some biases shown in this podcast, and limiting this list to Flyers goons is an example of that, because there are plenty of great examples of non-Flyers goons. But I am a die-hard Flyers fan. I got a Flyers tattoo in 2022, okay? Yeah, they're my team. Deal with it. Now, here's the criteria. I was born in 1981. And was not alive for the days of the Broad Street Bullies. So this list only includes players I can actually remember, starting in the 1986-87 season. More criteria. To be considered for this particular Mount Rushmore, the player must have A. Played multiple seasons for the Flyers. B. Had multiple seasons of 100 or more penalty minutes with the Flyers. C. Never had a season with the Flyers in which he earned more than 25 points. D. Been a skater. Goalies do not count. I am aware that Ron Hextall fits criteria A, B, and C, but I have a feeling he will find himself atop one of my mountains someday. It just won't be today. I wanted this to be more about guys who were known pretty much just for fighting, and although Hextall may be seen that way by outsiders, as a Flyers fan, there was a time when he was dynamite in net. Again, more on him in later episodes. Let's get to it. The first pick is one that should come as no surprise to any Flyers fan who's been watching as long as I have. Craig Berube. He was really the ultimate goon. He was on the ice to enforce and really nothing else. If he added to the scoreboard, I'm sure the coaches didn't mind, but that wasn't what they paid him for. In his entire NHL career, he played 1,054 games, amassing 61 goals, 98 assists, a -81, and 3,149 penalty minutes. So many great fights, and great stories too. I'll quickly share 2 of my favorites. One, when he became head coach of the Flyers, a player, I can't remember who, took a bad penalty late in the game, and a reporter asked Berube if he had any punishment in mind for that player, and without missing a beat, completely straight-faced, Berube says, "What do you want me to do, spank him?" He went on to call the question stupid, but to me the spanking was the funny part. Second, when they were both playing, Berube and Jeremy Roenick were in a scrum, and the linesman wrapped up Berube's arms. His nickname is Chief, by the way. And Roenick sucker punched him. Well, Chief is livid, and for the next 2 or 3 seasons, every time they play each other, Berube is trying to goad JR into a fight for his revenge. Roenick never complies. The fight never happens, but years later, around the 2003-04 season, Roenick is playing for the Flyers, and Berube is a player coach for the Phantoms, the Flyers AHL team, who were also based in Philly at the time. And this is from Roenick on a broadcast. The Phantoms and the Flyers locker rooms are connected together, and Chief feels very comfortable because he's been a part of the Flyers organization for such a long time. So he comes into the Flyers locker room where I'm getting ready. He walks in. I'm like, "Hey Chief, what's going on?" He's like, "Hey JR, what's going on?" Boom! He just slugs me. Just cracks me, right? And I kind of went down onto one knee and I got up, and he's like, "I told you I'd get you." And believe it or not, we played golf later that day with me, Boucher, Tockett, and Chief. So that's that. Sorry for the somewhat long reveal, but that was just too good not to share. Alright, next, sticking a little old school, late 80s, early to mid 90s, Dave Brown. He had 2 stints with the Flyers, won a Stanley Cup, unfortunately not with Philadelphia, but with the Edmonton Oilers in 1990 before returning to the city of brotherly love, like Berube, one of the tough guys I remember fondly from the time I was just getting into sports. Hockey was the first sport I really took a liking to. Maybe I should have learned how to skate and I should have played myself. I never did. I did play some street hockey, knocked out a tooth one time doing that. I don't have a real cool story for Brown like I did for Berube. This is the best I've got. Brown did play for the Philadelphia Bulldogs, an inline hockey team that was partially owned by Tony Danza. I didn't get a ton of opportunities to watch that, but I do remember really enjoying what I saw on the off chance I caught a game. I'll have to figure out a way to incorporate the Bulldogs into a future episode again somehow. One thing that I'm pretty sure I remember about that league, one team could be down to 2 skaters on the floor. So if 3 players committed minor penalties, you could see a 5-on-2, whereas in ice hockey it remains a 5-on-3 and just lasts longer. I think that's accurate, but maybe I made it up. I don't really feel like looking it up. Feel free to do so yourself if you're that interested. My next reveal, Donald Brashear. I'll tell you, before I get into why he made this list, if there was ever a guy who should have a story similar to the one I told earlier about Berube and Roenick, it's Donald Brashear. If he ever got the chance to get even with Marty McSorley, I'm not so sure McSorley would walk again. In the final seconds of a game between the Boston Bruins and the Vancouver Canucks on February 21st, 2000, McSorley got frustrated at Brashear's refusal to fight, and with less than 5 seconds to go in the game, McSorley swung his stick at Brashear's head. Brashear fell, hit his head on the ice, lost consciousness, and suffered a severe concussion. Brashear's concussion led to memory lapses, and he was out of action for several weeks. Meanwhile, McSorley was actually charged with assault with a weapon, convicted, and suspended for the remainder of the season and playoffs. He was sentenced to 18 months probation. McSorley never played in the NHL again, although he did play 14 games in the now defunct International Hockey League. But enough about him and more about Brashear. I know that there are some people who will not like me putting Brashear on the list over some of the guys I thought about but fell short, like Jody Shelley, Sandy McCarthy, and Sean Antosky. But to me, Brashear was great. And, he was actually an underrated hockey player. When he wanted to showcase his skills, they were there. He just enjoyed a good brawl more than lighting the lamp. Brashear is definitely the best hockey player on this list. He had a season with the Flyers where he amassed 25 points. That's goals and assists combined, if you're unfamiliar. So he just barely remained eligible for this mountain. One more point, and he wouldn't have been allowed. He did have a season with the Vancouver Canucks where he had 28 points, but that didn't happen in orange and black, so that did not disqualify him either. He won fights far more often than he lost. He also kicked off the fighting in a game against the Ottawa Senators that ended up setting the NHL record for penalty minutes in a game. I think it's been beaten since then. I'd have to look that up. Again, you can do that. He fought Rob Ray. Ray didn't really want to fight. I think he was just coming back from injury, but Brashear, instead of taking a baseball swing to Ray's head, like McSorley did to Brashear, Brashear dropped the gloves anyway, and he proceeded to bloody Ray up pretty good. After that beatdown, a couple of senators jumped Brashear, and chaos ensued in a wild one. The game was already out of reach at that time. The Flyers were up. There was a goalie fight. I remember the announcers were wondering what happens if neither team can put 3 skaters out on the ice because they're all either ejected or in the penalty box. That didn't happen, but Brashear got the party started that night, and it almost happened, and I still want to know what would occur. What would teams do? Would they call the game? Would they just play with 2 skaters or just put the backup goalies out there? Shawn Chabam needs to know these things. NHL, what would happen? Okay. Last but not least, Dan Kordic. 1/3 of the Dan line. 2 guys who would have been nice to include were his Dan line teammates, Scott Daniels and Daniel Lacroix, but I only had 1 spot left, and Kordic was the best goon out of those 3, which is saying something because they were all pretty good. Oh, skipping ahead a few years real quick in case anyone thinks I forgot, another Dan not on the mountain who was a goon, Dan Carcillo. I didn't forget him, I just hated him. Anyway, Kordic was on the 96-97 Flyers, one of my all-time favorite Flyers rosters. Unfortunately, they ran into a buzzsaw in the Detroit Red Wings in the Cup Finals. No great stories about Kordic. I'm sure there were some that I don't know. I just liked watching this man kick some ass. He had quite a few scrums with the Buffalo Sabres, who back then seemed to always go at it big time with the Flyers. He was one of many participants in a brawl that included everyone on the ice, including Flyers goaltender Garth Snow, who ended up going at it with Dominic Hasek a little. Kordic didn't actually do much in that one. Gary Galley, of all people, actually pinned him down for a bit. Galley was just trying to survive. It wouldn't have been a pretty sight if those 2 ended up fighting for real. Galley was a Flyer for a while. He was not a fighter. But Kordic, great at enforcing, not really great at anything else. That's why he makes a great choice for the Flyers' Goon Mount Rushmore. Real quick, 2 more guys who fell just shy, Todd Fedoruk and Riley Cote. Quick recap of my mountain: Craig Berube, Dave Brown, Donald Brashear, and Dan Kordic. I plan on releasing this episode right around the beginning of the NHL season, so let's go Flyers! Woo! Well, I really enjoyed this episode. I know I'll always really like the Philly sports-specific ones. Hopefully, even if you're not a Flyers fan, you at least enjoyed some of those stories. I'll see you next time. Go Birds!